In order. Okay, it's on the air. Good evening, everybody. This is the July 13th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the roll. Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Present, sir.
Pusdesris?
Present.
Saraki?
Here.
Nadeau?
Here.
Costick is here, and John Reilly will be absent this evening. Next, we'll have approval of tonight's agenda. You all have an agenda with your packet. Are there any changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? I think the agenda's...
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to correct you. You said today is the meeting of the 15th. Today is the 13th.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I was trying to get ahead here, so it's the 13th. Thank you. Thanks, Les. Okay.
We appreciate you going fast.
These first couple items are only going to take just a moment, and I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. I assume all of you are from Church Road. I know Bob's not, but so we'll move on. We have approval of the minutes from our June meeting. You've all had a chance to look at them in your packet. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Is there support?
I will second.
Okay, moved and supported. The minutes are seconded. Is there any discussion or changes, revisions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next, we have approval of our vouchers for June, and you've all had a chance to look at those. Are there any questions on the vouchers? If there are not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
So moved.
Can I have support?
Support.
Support.
Are there any questions about the vouchers? There's a short list here, actually, so if I don't hear any questions, I'll ask for the roll call. All in favor of approving the vouchers indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, vouchers are approved. Next, we'll receive a statement of revenues and expenditures for our major funds, our water and sewer funds. If there aren't any comments or questions, we'll just receive those and file them. I don't hear any questions. We'll move on. Item number 8 is approval of the Treasurer's Report for June. This displays our funds in our major DPS accounts. Any questions on the Treasurer's Report?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion we accept the treasurer's report, all three of them that I got.
You got 3 of them?
Yeah.
Second.
Well, anyway, for all 3 of them, is there support?
Second.
Support.
Been moved and supported. We receive and accept the Treasurer's Report. Any questions? If there are none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the Treasurer's Report has been accepted. So now we're into, the first item is the Church Road Pavement Rehabilitation Presentation. And I appreciate, I thought there'd be more residents here this evening, but I appreciate the 3 of you coming, and one of our trustees, Mike Jarecki. Thank you for being here, Mike. Appreciate it. I just want to run through a couple of things real quickly on this before we get into the details. First thing I want to point out to you residents that are here is we've had a plan, this commission has had a plan. We devised a plan back all the way to 2014 to deal with Church Road. And we all know the condition of the surface, but one of the problems with Church, just like Ferry and a couple of the other roads, is they're too narrow. So the lanes are unacceptable. So we had a plan that we were going to widen it 2 feet all off the north side of the road. We were going to also enclose the drains on the north side of the road. There are no shoulders currently. Maybe a foot or two of shoulder is all you got. We didn't want to cut any trees down. So our plan has been to totally reconstruct the road. That means digging up all the subbase, all the existing road material, and putting a new subbase in and replacing the asphalt surface. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight, but that's been our plan. We've reviewed that plan with Wayne County, and of course, one of the other points I'm going to come to is Wayne County owns all our roads and bridges. As a township in Michigan, we don't own our streets or bridges. Cities, villages, the county road commissions, and the state of Michigan own all the roads and are responsible for them. So we're under the jurisdiction of Wayne County. We've met, and Derek, you and I have met. Phil, you've been out there with the county over the last couple of years, and it hasn't been a good experience. With our plan to widen it 2 feet, one of the county engineers a couple of years ago told us, well, you got to have 6-foot shoulders. Well, there are no shoulders. That means we'd have to enclose all the ditches and put shoulders in. We appealed that and didn't get anywhere. We never got a reply from Wayne County on that issue. But that's been our plan, is to widen it 2 feet. So I wanted you to understand that. Tonight we're going to talk about a shorter term fix. And item number 2 in this handout indicates that twice in 2015 and in 2018, we went to the voters. Included in our plan was the fix of Church Road. And just as I just mentioned, both times we lost by about 300 votes, and so here we are today. The township has also, for this commission, approved a 0.4 of a mil, less than half a mil, that we use for road maintenance. And the maintenance activities are, when we get a bad snow or ice storm, we have the capability to do some salting and some plowing, not everything, but we all know the experience when a big storm comes that Wayne County is not quick to respond on our neighborhood streets, and sometimes 8 inches or 10 inches will build up. So we have the ability with our pickup trucks to do at least 1 lane down every street. And we made that decision because the fire chief would declare a snow emergency, and we have the ability to at least open up all the roads, rather than years ago I remember people being stuck all over the place. So that's one of the things we spend our money on. Supplemental winter maintenance. We do supplemental roadside mowing. And if we didn't do that, frankly, I think the county is committed that they'll be out once a year to do our roadside mowing and remove tree limbs that are down and whatnot. So we have that ability. We also do dust control on all the 5 or 6 miles of gravel roads we have. And then we spend about $120,000 a year in our neighborhoods. We do a lot of crack sealing, joint sealing, slab replacement, and some asphalt intersection improvements. So that's what that 0.4 of a mil goes for. That's strictly maintenance, though. Item number 5, the current plan under consideration is to improve the driving surface of Church Road from the canal east to East River Road. What we propose to do is put a new 2.5 to 3 inch asphalt surface down. Now, you've seen the big machines along the freeways where it's like a milling machine or a planing machine. They grind off the top 2.5 inches or so of the pavement, and then we're going to replace it with 3 inches. So there'd be a little 1/2 inch differential. And why 3 inches? Why not 2.5 inches? Because every 1/2 inch of asphalt you lay, the integrity of the pavement you're going to lay, even though we call it a short-term fix, makes it stronger. So 2 inches is better, 3 inches is better than 2, 3 inches is better than 2.5. So that's our plan. And you can do it in one lift with the machinery, so that adds a little bit of additional strength to that. We think that this will give us a good driving service for 4 to 6 years or longer. And there's certain sections of East River from Church Road south that the county did some asphalt resurfacing a few years ago. You're all familiar with that? And I'm addressing the gentleman sitting back there. I've got this screen in front of me, but that's lasted pretty well. Now the cracks are starting to show through, and they put about a 2.5 to 3 inch new lift over what they milled off. So that's what kind of thing we're looking at. Last year in February, when we did our budget deliberations, this commission, we've accumulated money, about $315,000 we could apply to this project. That includes all the costs. That includes, once we're finished with the pavement, we also have to get somebody to come in and restripe the road. That center line is pretty critical to that narrow road. So we're not going to widen the road with this, but we're going to give you, the proposal is to give a good driving surface. Lastly, I would just state that any recommendation, we're just an advisory commission, and anything we do or recommend ends up going to the Township Board. I'm glad to see Mr. Taricki here and Mr. Nadeau, both are representatives of the Township Board. And I think some of the others may be watching, I think, maybe, perhaps. But at any rate, our recommendations go to the Township Board for final approval. So one of the deliberations that we did have, we expected when we discussed this in February, with the bridge being closed, you know, trucks pay a premium to come over when contractors haul front-end loaders, heavy equipment over, they're paying a real premium at the bridge. And then when you're hauling gravel over or stone over or asphalt over, and then you're hauling leftover products that you take back off the island, they're paying a premium for all that trucking. We did request 7 bids. 7 firms were contacted, and only 2 responded. Derek's going to explain the bidding in a minute, but one of the things that we tussled with is, and this really speaks to the Township Board, that's why I'm glad you're here, is are we going to be accused of being short-sighted that we're going to spend $300,000 on a temporary fix? And we really, I've been struggling with this, but we really got good bids. We got good unit prices for all the activities that have to be done. So it's hard to pass up this opportunity. Why I say that is, when you look at Wayne County, we're going to work on another road program, this commission is, but it wouldn't be before voters until November of 2022, and frankly, I don't know how much it's going to be for. One of the priorities, based on traffic, accidents, traffic volumes, and congestion, is Meridian. We have 3 miles of Meridian that are in terrible shape. And that's certainly going to be one of the first major road projects that we're going to undertake if we have any money. And frankly, we've been meeting and we've written to Wayne County about the condition of Meridian, and Derek has communicated with them about the condition of Meridian. They've indicated back that they know it's bad, but they're comparing Meridian with all the other roads in Wayne County, whether it's Ford Road or 7 Mile in Livonia, Jefferson. That's what we're competing with. So at any rate, there's that issue. Plus, we have a lot of bad bridges still. They're fixing the bridge now. They're going to spend all these millions of dollars. My concern was, when do we really think that they're going to spend money on Church Road? So I think this is an opportunity, and we're going to discuss this now. But I was concerned about it. I thought if the bids come in high and we could only do a segment of it, let's say up to HCL Jackson, from the canal to HCL Jackson, that didn't make any sense. But the bids, we got good bids. So I think I'm done talking for now. And you want anything to add to this, Derek, what I just stated?
Just a couple of things. When we do bid, these are all competitively bid. They're sent out through the publication of record. We put it in professional publications. Then we also solicit contractors to encourage them, hey, we got this bid going out. We would hope that you would place a bid. So we try very hard to get as many bids as we possibly can. In this situation, the way the market is, I'm pretty confident that's why we only received the 2 bids. I'm also confident that we received competitive pricing because the low bidder, Al's, is actually going to be doing the restoration work for the Brico job, the water main job we have going on. So they're going to be on the island doing that work, as well as they already have a contract with the township for bike path milling and resurfacing. So they're going to be on the island for that project as well. So I think part of the reason we received a pretty good bid from them is that they're already going to be on the island doing work. So it worked well logistically for them to get this project in addition to the others they already have. One item that was listed in the memo, in the action item that I provided to you, was that there was going to be a pre-award meeting with Al's this week. That did take place on Monday. And the primary piece of information we were looking from that meeting was what kind of schedule they would be able to present. Our concern And also the concern that's been expressed to me by a couple of the residents on Church is to try to get this project done before school starts. Obviously, the traffic load on that street increases significantly after, I believe, September 7th is the beginning of the school year this fall. And Al's had indicated that they felt they could fit the project in with their other projects prior to that September 7th timeline. They were planning on coming onto the island in late August to do the bike path work, so their hope would be to pull it towards the middle to the second part of August and do it around that time frame. My plan would be, if it passes the DPS commission tonight, I would take that recommendation to the Township Board at their August 9th meeting, and that would give Al's the necessary lead time as far as approvals are concerned to order their materials and try to meet that timeline that they had offered up. So those were just 3 pieces of information I figure were worthwhile for the conversation. Once we get towards the public comment portion of it, I do have an email I wanted to read into the record that I received from a resident from on Church that wasn't able to make the meeting, but I wanted to let people know what they thought. So.
Okay. Does any other commissioner have anything they want to state at this time? If not, we have three citizens. We have 4 citizens here. Would you like to come up and address us, ask us a question, just address us with your opinions of what we're proposing? We invited you to come to speak to us. No, you got nothing. Does that mean you concur with what we're proposing, or?
I do, certainly.
So, do you have any questions? All right. Well, that was easy. So, with that, I wanted to let the citizens come in. I think it's important that if we didn't tell you what was going on and we started construction, people are going to be calling all over, what's going on our street, right? So hopefully people know now. Maybe people are watching from home. So with that, I guess we'll close the presentation part of this. And we have a normal place on our agenda for public comment. It doesn't have to be related to Church Road. It can be related to anything that we're responsible for. Bob, I see you in the audience. Are you here? You want to address us on anything?
Why, sir? No. I was going to write a letter, but it's nice to have an opportunity to come down and see everybody live. Bob Z. Blauvelt. John. I wanted to, and I represent a lot of people who I'm sure are out there watching that live on dirt roads on this island. I'd like to compliment and thank the commission, John and Derek, for the fine job that you've done on dust control. Dust control may not sound like much to people who don't live on dirt roads, but for those of us who do, it's very important. The public health, safety, and welfare. I can remember years ago when we didn't have this program, and we would go around door to door and try and collect a few dollars to hire somebody to come in and do the road, and it was really pretty bad. There were many times people would be cutting their lawn with masks on. This was long before COVID. It's very important to us. Grading the road is important, keeping it in good condition, and the dust control. I asked the fellas if they could, and I think I talked to you too about this, Bill, move it up this year to May, because May is a very bad month for us. You wouldn't think right after the rains in April it would be, but it is. And Derek and John were there, and you folks were there, and it's very much appreciated. And they have a program in place, which is very impressive. He has a plan, he has timing, and he's there. And I remember when we had Dilbert coming in with the dual bond, which we all thought and did know that was probably the best, and we can't get that right now. Hopefully when the bridge reopens we can. So we have to apply a few more applications of the chloride, and we do appreciate you coming in and keeping it. It was much better last summer. I think, Derek, you gave us, what, 3 applications? 4. And just want you to know it's very much appreciated, and it's very important. You got 0.4 mil, which I think is only, what, about $300,000, John, somewhere around?
250 is
Yeah.
what we get out of it.
So I know you have to spend your money wisely,
But thank you for the dust control. It's very important to the health of the people who live in there.
Thanks for your
And
comments.
thank you.
What street do you live on?
Blauvelt,
Lave, okay.
you've been there.
I know where it's at.
That's French.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else want to speak on anything else? If not, we'll move on then. Okay, so now we're going to, Derek, we have a new resolution in front of you all. Since Derek said that when he passed out the packets Friday, that yesterday they were going to have this meeting with the contractor, so this reflects the results of that meeting. So the resolution now would be is that the commission recommends to the Township Board the award of a contract with Al's Asphalt Paving Company for the resurfacing of Church Road. The recommendation is for alternate number 2, which is the 3-inch asphalt depth, at a contract cost of $238,150. The commission also recommends the authorization of a contingency amount totaling $40,000. Now, why the contingency? What we expect is with that pavement, Derek's looked at it closely, our engineers have looked at it. There's a lot of chunks that are loose, you know, it's like, we call it alligator, the pavement is. We expect that when they start to remove some of that, we're gonna have to dig down and remove some spots all the way down to the sub-base material. So that some spots that are really bad won't get just 3 inches, they may get a foot, depending on what it's gonna require to stabilize. That's what that contingency amount would be. Right, Derek?
Yeah, it's for full depth replacement, which was a unit price that was on the bid spec. But like the chairman had mentioned, if they encounter when they start milling it coming up in chunks beyond the 3 inches, that's for that full depth replacement, as you had
So
mentioned.
you have anything else you want to add to this?
Just that one email that I had received from the resident. And then also just a point of clarification, if they're gonna be doing 3 inches, more than likely it's gonna be 2 lifts per side. So they'll do 1.5 inches, then they'll do 1.5 inches, and then they'll move over to the other lane and do 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches.
Do you want to read the resident's letter into the?
Yeah, probably wouldn't hurt just to, so the email was from a Kristen Boucher. I'd like to present to the commission, as a resident of Church Road, we feel that the resurfacing is much needed considering the amount of traffic that the road sees on a daily basis. We are hoping that during the resurfacing process, special attention is paid to both the shoulders of the road on both sides, as there have been many residents who walk, run and bike down Church, and in its current state proves to be dangerous. We also hope that consideration is taken as far as the timing of the project. We live at the corner of Church and Park Lane, and during the school year, there are constant backups on both Church and Park Lane trying to get to the elementary school, even without busing. Even with busing. If the commission is able to time the project with the school year in mind, that would be helpful to the residents in the area of Church and Park Lane. And we had discussed timing. When we had talked about this at the last meeting, the idea was to coordinate the project with the county to work on the shoulders, not to increase the width, but to at least restore material that may no longer be there. Commissioner Reilly had mentioned that drop off, correct some of that, bring it flush to the grade of the road. So John and I will coordinate with the county. They've already said they'd be more than willing to work with us to be able to do that work when the project is ongoing or shortly after. So.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion first, and then we'll open it up to discussion or comments. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Lenny?
I second it.
Les.
Les? Okay. So we have a motion and support. So let's I'll give you all the opportunity to talk. Les, you first.
My only concern is coming across the toll bridge with all this asphalt. Is there going to be a problem there?
As Al's Asphalt did our sectioning and paving project, not the sectioning, that was a concrete contractor, but our paving portion of the project a year or so ago when the toll bridge was closed, or I'm sorry, when the free bridge was closed and they had to bring it across the toll bridge. That included a milling machine and the material. So they're very familiar with not only the tolls, but also the logistics of bringing that type of equipment and materials over. They are going to have to cat over the milling machine, not the one for the bike paths, because that's, I think, a 4-foot wide mill. But the larger mill for the road, they're gonna have to cat it across, but they're already familiar with that. They did that for the previous project 12 months ago, so I don't think you could end up with a better situation where this is the low bidder because they are familiar with what's necessary over there.
Okay, well, the water main project, didn't they bring something over here in a barge? Or didn't that happen?
Yeah, John, you wanna address that?
Yes, they did bring an excavator over that was overweight for the current weight limit on the toll bridge. So they barged it.
Well, with that rotomiller, they could bring it over in a barge.
They could if they needed to,
Yeah.
at their expense.
Where'd they bring it in, Water's Edge?
Yes, sir.
That's the only concern I have about is,
Okay.
those big trucks with asphalt in it, how heavy they are going across that bridge.
Okay, Lenny?
Nothing. Looking forward to having it completed.
Okay, yeah, I know you're on the fire department as well, so,
The edges worry us.
okay. Phil?
My only concern was the shoulders, and you've addressed that. I think we need to pay special attention to that to get those as smooth as possible with the road so there's no drop-off since we aren't able to widen it at all. And other than that, I think that's the best we can do with this project. I'm all behind it.
Laura?
I'm on the other side of church, but I think that's good, and I'm on the side of the dirt side, so I agree with your comment. My only question was about the schedule. You may have mentioned it, but did they give a duration of the project? Just
They said about a week.
about a week, okay. So, I'm good.
David?
I'm just happy to see it done. What about traffic interruptions, traffic flow?
The contractor will be responsible for traffic control. We'll be down to one lane in certain areas while they're doing the project. Nice thing about asphalt material is it sets up pretty quickly versus a concrete type situation where you've got a cure time that's much longer. So if there is interruptions, it will be limited. And we'll coordinate it with the residents, so.
Thanks, Jerry.
So if there's no further comments, then,
Well, I got one.
okay.
When they're doing this, Jerry, do you think they might be able to squeeze it out a little bit wider? No, I'm saying like maybe 6-8 inches on each side, because with the school buses and trucks with dual wheels on the back, most of them are already off the edge of that road.
The problem is on a lot of stretches of that road, there just is no shoulder anyway. The grass comes right up to it. So
Right.
even if you wanted to stretch it, you'd have a ton of prep work you'd have to do for the subbase to be able to pave over anything wider than what the existing width of the road is. So
That sub base is pretty much there, because I know I've dug through it.
on the shoulder you're talking about, or the lack thereof. Yeah, I mean, we can look at it. That's the best I can do, but it's going to be pretty difficult.
That was my only question, if maybe they could just a little bit, and the heck with the county. I know the county wants these lanes that wide, but you can't do it.
I don't want to speak to that. Just a quick second, if you don't mind. So, obviously, the township's preference would be to have that road to Wayne County standards to be as wide as it should be, so that it's as drivable as possible. The county, as the chairman had mentioned earlier, they weren't willing to do anything other than their standards on a full reconstruct. Even on a maintenance job, they weren't willing to go any wider than what's already there unless you go to the full width that they require. So there was no allowance or provision to go anything less than their standard. So really, we're not going to be permitted to go any wider than the existing base, because we can continue to do maintenance on the existing road width, but the minute you start increasing its width or its capacity, or doing any kind of full reconstructs, you have to go to their standard. So that's kind of the limiting factor in all this. We would love to have a wider road there. It's just a matter of what we're allowed to do, what we can do, and what would be necessary if we were to do a full reconstruct or increase the width in any scope at all. So,
Okay. Any other comments? All right, I'm going to call the question. You have, I don't need to read the motion again, you all have it in front of you. So you have the resolution to recommend to the Township Board. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, so it's unanimous. We're going to move forward with the project, so look forward to that. It'll be a nice improvement. And we'll be recommending it to the Township Board. I want to just, before anybody leaves, you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but we are going to have a presentation, and I think we're going to move it up on the agenda, if that's okay. This is a presentation, it's a video that our engineer secured on the actual, this blue pipe that's all over by Macomb and Meridian. This is going to show you how it's inserted into, it's called pipe bursting. We have a 16-inch water main going to go into an old 16-inch that I think is 73 years old. So are you able to show the video right now?
I was wondering what this was.
Later tonight, we're going to discuss details on this.
So you can see the pipe they're going to go into is right here.
Stop for a sec.
Gareth, can you explain what's happening with the lead bullet-like structure?
Yeah, so basically what happens is you have a bullet type structure that they're pulling through an older pipe. And that bullet type structure, that type fitting has the new pipe that's connected to it and pulls it back through the old pipe, essentially bursting the old pipe and pulling the new pipe in the void that was created when you bursted the old.
You're gonna have to have that track on top of it.
So when you have a sending and a receiving pit, so the sending pit is where they're sending the pipe in, and you have a pulling pit, a receiving pit that's pulling that through. And if you see this little green wire on here, that's called a tracer wire. And when you have a PVC pipe or an HDPE pipe, in order to locate the pipe when you're doing utility locates, they have a tracer wire on it so you can locate it.
Get that tooth down as tight as you can too, so you don't got that too. Okay, just keep pulling until it stops. When it stops,
And the benefits, obviously, of this is versus like an open cut type situation, you don't have as much of an impact to the residents.
Holy does Jesse, get ready to track that hole back again.
Usually. There isn't as much restoration. It's a tracer wire. Well, when you have a metal pipe, it's easier to locate through your utility locating equipment. But if you go to a plastic pipe, usually those are picking up on the metal. So all that blue pipe you see out there in Meridian, it's all fused together in a big line so that it can be pulled through that pipe as one piece. And that's why the way that they pull it along the existing line is why it's got to be all fused and laid out so it's easy to pull through. Right, or it pulls into like a valve structure. And here it's coming through the other side.
Someone go watch wire.
Derek, what are they pulling it with?
Their machine, I don't know if you, yeah. So I don't know if they have
Like
any
a
on
winch?
site right now, do they?
Like a winch on a bulldozer?
It's down at the DPS currently, Les, if you get a chance on the way home, or tomorrow ride through the back 40 back there and I'll show you.
What is it?
It looks like a generator, actually.
They got enough power to pull that?
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Right, and you will see some excavations occurring after the pipe has been pulled through to do your tie-ins for your service leads. So all you have are your sending, your receiving pits, and then your service leads that they have to dig down and connect.
Because when they brought the water main over to Grozeel.
I mean, on Grozeel it varies, but is it ductile out there?
Cast iron
Cast.
currently.
So it's either cast or
Well,
ductile.
in this case, we ain't there yet. What's wrong?
What's good?
Okay, how far?
No, I don't think so. You don't have any
You
problem.
actually connect your locating device to the tracer wire and you put a signal through that wire. That's how you're able to trace that.
Chain it back, chain it back, chain it back. Stop right there.
The material they're
chain it
using on
through.
this project is PVC, right? And another plastic material they'll often use is HDPE, which is usually like a black pipe.
Yeah.
High density polyethylene.
It's amazing how they figure
Okay,
out
you're
how
getting
do
ready
that.
to go in.
Nice presentation. I never saw this lighting down the road.
Well, we've gotten a lot of phone calls. We've
had
gotten a lot of
questions.
phone calls about what is that blue pipe doing out there? How are they installing it? You know, what is the method? So this is a good illustration of how the,
Bob, one of the questions
Keep
that
going.
I gotta ask, and I had to call John to get the answer, is you know, if you looked at them, they all have a plug on the end of them, and then they had a hose in one of them, and the end of one of them, or all of them had a hose in one end, and they're full of water. And John, you want to explain why?
You want to finish the video, or?
it's pretty much done. I can show.
Well, we can watch the video, but
Okay. So
it's,
the pipe is completely
Oh, yeah.
fused together
Let's go.
and then they put the cap on and they pressure test it to make sure it's gonna accept the amount of water pressure. They pump it up to 150 PSI, leave it
Yeah, oh,
for
yeah,
2
you're
hours,
good.
make
You're
sure there's
good.
no
Put it
leaks.
in high gear
And then
and
they
start pulling.
bacteriological test, sample it for bacteria in the water.
Okay.
Once those
Hold
2-day
on,
samples
I'm gonna
pass,
need a track
the
hole
pipe
down
that's
here,
currently
track
on the
on
ground,
top of the
just
ground.
north of Gray's Drive, is ready to drink out of and is ready to go in the ground.
so that's why it's sealed.
No, he does it, but now, I guess there's a problem.
They haven't started on that right there, but they'll do between anywhere from 300 to 500 feet a day. It depends on, as Derek was stating earlier, the receiving and sending pits. So, like if you've noticed in front of the public safety building, there's a hole there. So that's going to be a sending pit. We're going to start there and send it north to Macomb Street, which is the next tie-in right there. You saw us digging up there currently. So we're going to do that piece first. That'll happen next week.
And then we pull it, Bob, under the canal.
Actually, we're going to
Under
drill
the
that,
canal.
Bill. We're going to drill that, Bill.
Right through your house. No, right along Meridian.
You've got a 45-foot hole right there.
Right along Meridian. Well, I think that's because of the pit that's gonna.
Yeah, okay, is it, so there's a pump station there, you're gonna go right under that?
I don't know about a pump station.
It's not a pump station, actually. So there's a bunch of telephone conduits that they just realize are in the way. So
There's a gas line that goes through there.
they moved that currently already. So those conduits are in our way. We got to reorganize where we're going to put it.
So, and as John had mentioned, they're actually going to bore underneath the canal rather than
Correct.
pipe
Directional
burst
drill
under the
it.
canal, yeah.
Yeah.
So that water line underneath the canal will be what, 6 feet underneath the canal bottom?
Correct.
And run from one side to the other,
Correct.
so. And are they going with HDPE or are they doing?
We're still waiting to hear from the manufacturer because, like everything else from COVID, nothing's available.
If you recall, we had originally had a problem with the PVC material and its availability, but they were able to come through and get the material that we needed. We actually modified the type of material and the type of method to go under the thoroughfare canal from a jack and bore with basically a metal pipe to go to a directional drill with a either PVC or HDPE. So depending upon the availability of the material, it'll either be this material here or it'll be HDPE, one or the other. Either or, I believe the cost was actually less to do a directional drill than it was to do a jack and bore and the material associated with those. So, you know, those are all things that they're working through to be able to make sure that those connections happen without a problem. So,
The life expectancy on this material versus the old cast iron?
beyond when I die, I would assume.
I always tell Derek it's going to outlast his kids. So, 100 years, they say.
No offense, Derek, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. It's
Did you say this is a 8-inch?
16.
16.
16. Yeah, that's right, they are 16.
It's 16 into a 16, right?
Yep.
yes,
Right.
yep.
That's right.
They can upsize it 2 sizes by bursting. So they could go to a 20 in the same hole.
The problem is when you start going bigger, you start having some problems with heaving. So as you see that new line coming through the old line, it does push the dirt out. So if you're going under a driveway, you could have a situation where the driveway comes up. So you got to be careful with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
This line here is going to tap into the line coming down to the Free Bridge, this one that's going in front of the police station.
It's currently tied onto that line right now. We're going to tie on just north of that connection.
And then you've got another line coming in on the north end. Are you
Correct.
going to do a separate system for that?
No, we're stopping at Island Drive.
Got you.
That's all we could afford at this time.
I'm sorry? Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, okay, it worked out. It's just fine.
Nice presentation.
Thank you. We're going to discuss more details at the end of our meeting on some issues with the pipe, but we wanted to give people a chance to see this, all of us, being pulled. So I want to thank everybody. You're all welcome to stay. We're going to move on with other items. Mike, thanks for coming, and Bob, thanks for coming.
Nice job, fellas.
Thanks for your service, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Spend our money wisely.
Thank you.
Careful, Cliff.
The next item on the agenda, are we done with that?
I believe so.
Next item
got
is.
any other questions? Unless you had any other questions.
Are there any- Well, we're going to, at the end of your packet, we did have that pamphlet that we obtained. There's some issues I want to talk about, some details there that John and Derek can answer for us all. I thought we ought to be able to answer questions. I know
Is that a coincidence
I know
that's
Gene asked
Meridian
Phil about
City?
it, and he's going to be ready to answer.
Meridian City in Boise, that video?
Rain sent that to us.
So-
yeah.
Item B on our agenda is analog meter reading policy. Derek?
I don't know if any of you are aware of some of the trepidation associated with basically radio read meters. So, as you may or may not know, the majority of the water meters that we have throughout the township are radio read. So the guys can go around when it's time to record usage. They drive around, they pick up radio reads from the meters, and that gives them the usage. We bring that back to the office, and then the bills end up getting calculated based upon those readings. There has been, over the past couple of years, some concern from individuals regarding the radio read technology and whether or not it could potentially cause problems. And I don't think there's any data or science out there to indicate that's actually the case. But nonetheless, we have had a couple of residents that have requested that we remove their radio read system and continue with an analog system. So this has been something that's happened not only in Groseal but also in some of our neighboring communities. So most of the communities are reviewing policies to be able to offer up that service to the residents. And a couple of those policies and some of that information was included in the packet. What I would like to do, in speaking with the water billings clerk, is develop a policy that we could present to the residents that would give them that option, but also takes into consideration the additional time that it takes to manage analog meters. We have to go in first and foremost and modify the meters to an analog system So there's some work associated with that and potential cost. And then on a quarterly basis, billing becomes an issue. Going into their home and actually physically taking the reading off the meter and then bringing it into the system and then calculating it different as far as usage or recording that usage as compared to our radio read system, which is pretty much automated. So in order to provide that to the residents, we wanted to establish a policy that we could provide to them and basically account for that additional work. So what's before you tonight is basically a draft policy. It's modeled off of primarily Dearborn's policy. I would like to go on the record to let you know that if adopted, there is some legislation, some push for some legislation at a state level that could happen. It's been going on for the past couple of years, but nothing has been formally adopted. Could basically supersede any local policy that we would develop and would basically take over for any policy we adopted if it ends up getting passed through the state. So I know there's been some push from some groups, basically a meter choice lobby group that would mandate that municipalities and any other utilities offer this at no charge. But I know a lot of the pushback against that has been basically the statements I've made. There's additional cost to the utility provider, and that should be accounted for, and the resident or the homeowner should make sure that they cover that additional cost. So in saying that, I'm sure you probably have questions, but that's what's before you tonight in this action item.
Well, in the packet on this item, we had about 10 pages of material that you had an opportunity to look at. I think that the last page, the City of Dearborn's policy regarding this issue, page 36, was the most significant to me. I think that the fees proposed by you, Derek, are based off that proposal. So at any rate, we'll open it up to questions. Phil.
2 questions, Derek. Maybe to John also. Does $50 cover our cost of changing a meter out?
I did review the fee structures with the billings clerk, also looked at our budget, our personnel expenditures, and I think that these fees are pretty accurate to the time, the wages, the benefits, all the calculated total personnel cost per hour. So I think it's a good balance between affordability, but also make sure that we're covering our costs associated with this work. And John, maybe you can speak to it a little bit, but.
I believe Phil's actually inquiring about the cost of the register for the meter, right? Not the cost we incur to go out and do the change and to read the meter manually, right? You're asking
Basically, the installation part of it would be my concern, that you could
so
go out and actually.
the register, the analog register would be more than the $50.
It would be.
Yeah, it wouldn't be much over that though. Maybe $75 for an analog register. The current ones are $165 because they have the radio built into them.
Right. I just would want to make sure we cover our cost.
I thought your question was more related to how long it takes them to swap it out and whether the $50 is more representative of that.
Well, that was my question.
Okay.
In other words, can we go out and change somebody's meter out for $50?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 parts to that. One, it's the time associated with swapping it out, and 2, to John's point, is the actual meter charge itself. So we do charge the residents for the meters in their bill, so they would have already been charged for that meter in their
Right.
quarterly billing. So that would account for the equipment. Really what we're looking at is the personnel cost to be able to swap the meter out. And how long do you guys usually take to swap a meter? 15 minutes. Okay, so
Okay.
you know, I think we're pretty much in the ballpark.
My other question would be, and it's just for general information, are our DTE meters radio read?
Yes.
Have people had the
Actually,
opportunity to opt out of those?
To restate that, I don't know that they're radio read, but they do communicate back to DTE for your billings. Whether they actually use radio read technology or not, I believe they do, but there is a communication factor with them that is similar, that's not analog.
Do they have an opt-out program?
I do not know if they do or not.
I mean, I'm wondering if I was concerned about my health or something from one of these meters. I take this one out, but that one's sitting right there next to it.
I want to say that they do,
Okay.
but I can't definitively tell you. because there may have been some changes based upon some of this push that's been going on. But my understanding is that there is, but I can't tell you with 100%
Okay.
accuracy that that's the case.
My main concern would be that we cover our costs. I mean, if we're doing something as an option, for reasons that I read in there, there's been no real health care justification for this that's on record. It's that we cover our costs. That's all. That's all I'd be concerned about.
Good point. Are there other comments?
I have a question. So does that mean that every month you would have to go into somebody's house and read it, or?
Quarterly.
Quarterly, I'm
yes.
sorry.
We have entertained self-reporting, but my understanding is that it has not been very effective. Is that correct, John?
That is correct.
Yeah. So
Is there any concerns like with COVID, with like these things come up? I mean,
our employees do house calls on a daily basis. Yeah. I mean, that's just part of the job. Entering residences, taking care of meter swap outs, that type of thing. So, and we do have some residents right now that are on an analog program. I think we probably have 3 or 4.
2 that I'm aware of.
2 that you're aware of. So we do have some that already do this, that we're taking taking that risk to perform that service for them. So
I know that in my house in Omaha, I have a glass window right by the meter, so they don't even have to come to the house. That's great. Suggest that to the resident.
Unfortunately, we wish, I think everybody's arrangements were as good, as beneficial to us as that, but as you notice in the policy, there are some residences that we can't even get to the meter.
Yeah.
So in those cases, I think the way the policy is written, we reserve the right to say no to that, just simply because we cannot be guaranteed access on a reliable basis. So.
Yeah.
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, well, you answered my question on covering our costs. Is there what's the Michigan law, or is there none?
I'm not aware of a Michigan law. Like I mentioned,
That article mentioned a couple of states that.
Michigan is an unregulated state as far as that is concerned.
Okay.
But there is movement to try to regulate it. But as of now, that doesn't exist. Yep.
And is there any way to guess how many people would elect the opt-out?
I really don't anticipate a huge flood of individuals. Like John had mentioned, we have 2 currently. If you end up with 10, it's going to be a lot. So we haven't had a ton of interest, and quite honestly, we would prefer that people stay with the radio reads and not even have to, work with the analog system, because it really, this is being provided to cover our costs, not to try to make money off of. So, we would prefer that doesn't be a common practice.
Okay. Thank you.
Lenny or Les, you have a question?
Yeah, I got a few.
Okay.
I don't, like you said, Derek, you don't know if DTE and Mishcon, they both got radio read meters. And I believe that somehow or other the Edison meter, I don't know if it goes back through the electric lines or it is read by somebody going down the street. But I know the technology for the gas meter, it's the same as what our meters are. It's a radio read. So these people are complaining about these meters. Actually, when I was working, the meter itself was down in the basement, but the radio in that sending unit was outside with the battery, right?
CoStar. Now they've changed it. They're on the.
And now some of the other ones, I remember you were putting them in, the radio is on the head of the meter.
Correct.
But I think it's foolish because they got a microwave in their house, don't they? Guess what? That microwave is going to give you more zap than that meter is.
And I think the articles that are included in this kind of indicate that there isn't any proof that this is the case, but nonetheless, I think there's still some concern.
I came up with another idea. Say, okay, you don't want that meter in your house? We're going to put you a meter pit in your front yard. And you can put a radio read on the meter pit. That's another way. These people are complaining about it, but you charge them to put a meter pit in.
The problem with the meter pits, I've tried to move away from those just because of the issues associated with them. I mean, I'd be happiest if we had no meter pits in the entire township, just because the meters have problems when they're sitting in there. They get full of water. They become problematic.
Derek, I've dealt with those for 40-some years, so you're not saying nothing I don't know.
I bet. Yep, I'm sure.
Len?
No, whether I agree or disagree, there are folks out there with some very strong opinions on those meters. So to give them a viable option, I think is a good move. I really do. You know, and I agree.
Would you like to introduce the motion to approve the policy?
I would, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, and I appreciate what Derek had said. I mean, it'll be a handful, but for those handful of people, they're happy residents.
You have a motion on the floor
Yes.
to recommend that the policy be forwarded to the Township Board for approval. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. Is there any other comments?
I don't think Les's house is getting one.
I don't hear any other comments. Call for the motion for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay. You'll note that. There was one. And your opposition is taken with good intentions, Les.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the recommendation that we continue or extend the contracts for the ditching and hydro seeding work that was done last year, that was started last year. Derek, I'll turn it over to you.
We had a lot of success last year with the ditching project that we did. If you recall, we had budgeted $30,000 last year, and in this year's fiscal year budget, we had actually increased that and doubled it to $60,000. A lot of the same conditions to last year's motion apply, with Detroit Great All being pretty much the only one in the area that does this work for hire. The information that was included in the packet, he verbally told me he was going to hold the price. I had asked him to put it in his estimate as he had in the previous year. I'm still waiting to get that, but he has confirmed he's holding the price that he had last year at $88 per hour for personnel and equipment. PMP Landscaping, you saw their email listed in the packet. They're willing to hold their price the same as last year for the hydro seeding for restoration. And then we had used the spoils hauling. We had used Compo Brothers for that work. Last year, I think when I brought this action item before you, we were looking at $180 per hour because we were working with 2 trucks, or we were planning on using 2 trucks. As things ended up playing out last year, we actually only ended up using 1, and that's the intent for this year. So there was very little downtime. The contractor, Detroit Great All, could do some elevations and some movement and a little bit of stockpiling there while they were waiting on him to come back with the dump truck. So we're just going to go with 1 dump truck again this year, so versus the 2 that we had planned last year. So I think everybody was very happy. All the residents that we had done work in front of their residences with the work that was done and the responsiveness that the township was providing by doing this work. And you'll see the metrics that are included on page 38 as far as how much we ended up getting completed. John and I have been maintaining lists, ones left over from last year locations, as well as new locations. So as soon as they come in right after Labor Day, we'll be raring to go, and we got a long laundry list of locations to work on. So strongly recommended to move forward with this.
And just to comment, I know maybe John could comment too, to amplify what Derek just said. You've had a good result from it, I assume. I've talked to you in terms of handling the stormwater, like today's shower, but people are really happy with what we did, right?
Absolutely. Because everybody sees us out there wants us to come to their neighborhood next.
Okay, so it's a good program.
It is. Thank you.
Do you have any idea number of houses that we get in a year?
How many requests we received?
Yeah.
I probably have a list of at least 20 right now of just requested locations. Not to mention the ones that we have on our list that weren't requested, whether they're stretches of road where we have flooding issues or obviously this is a network. So if we have a pinch point somewhere where it's backing up a ditch line through a residence or a residential area that we need to free up. So we have our own list of locations too that we need to work on.
So what happens, David, a lot of times is the high point might be in the middle of the block. You got to go the entire distance to alleviate that high point. So we're not just going to that one house per se.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, we need a motion. The recommendation is to adopt the resolution recommended to the Township Board the extension of the contracts for Detroit grade all P&P landscaping and ditching and to Campo for the spoils hauling for the restoration work and ditching for this year's program. They're all holding their prices. This was bid last year. That's the resolution. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. So we move and support. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Not for me.
I would like to say something about this. We're going to pay them company to go out there and clean the county ditches. I'm going to say something like Ted Van Az said. When we get through doing that, send the county a bill.
Well,
Don't you remember Ted saying that?
we can send it. Yes, absolutely. We can send them a bill for the $30,000 for last year and finish this. We can send them a bill for $60,000.
Right, and he was a,
And Church Road.
Yeah, and Church Road. So.
well, he was
think
the
that
treasurer,
do you think the?
and he could put his name on there.
Well, I think that if we send the bill, that whatever that costs to send it is just wasted money on our part. But for the record, we could backtrack to all the projects we've had like this and say to them at some point, this is what we spent on ditching, because now we have a formal ditching program. Whereas before, it was very piecemeal and scattered, if you remember.
Right, I agree.
We did projects, and some of the projects we did before were to alleviate some flooding, which involved some work in rear yards, side yards, instead of just along the county ditch. But you could take that whole project on Loma Circle that we did.
Well, they did come in there and do something. The county did.
Yeah, what did they do? They provided an outlet?
They did
Loma Circle.
They did a little ditching on Loma Circle, right after we did our project.
Well, at any rate, if you want to make a motion that we send the bill formally, we can do it on the record, I guess.
Well, you want to get through voting this, and then I will make that
Okay.
motion?
All right, is there any other comments?
I have just a couple questions. So last year we did 1.7 miles for 30,000, and this year we'll double that?
Theoretically,
Okay.
yeah.
Concerning the hydro seeding, I was just curious as to the number on that. Did they hydro seed everything?
They did, yes.
And so I was just curious at the estimate of $8,000 at 10 cents a square foot. The math on that just doesn't seem to come out. We're going to end up with, they're going to have at least a 6-foot area times the length, which is going to be roughly 18,000 feet. And that would boost that up closer to $11,000 as that estimate. Is that?
In simple math, I just doubled whatever the amount was last year.
Oh,
So-
that was the charged amount last year?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
So-
fine. And they held their price, so then,
Right, and what we do is we keep track of the work that's being done, and then we work it up until the budget is complete, so.
and there may be some areas they can hydro seed, I guess. You know.
Well, we try not to do any more than what they can hydro seed, so we try to balance the budget as close to it as we possibly can. So what would end up happening is we would work an area, then the hydro seeder would come in, do his work, and then we'd move to the next area. So we were always trying to keep this running tally going, and we eventually got to the point where we could identify, well, how far can we go to make sure that ends meet? you know, hydro seeding and ditching included.
So it's reasonable to assume we'll double the amount that we're gonna be able to do.
It's reasonable to assume that, yeah, so.
That's my question.
Yep.
Other questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that after we get through doing this ditching in the county right away, that we have the treasurer send them a bill. Just like what Ted Van Oz said they wanted to do.
Okay, you made a motion. Is there support for it?
I second that with a comment. This entire evening has been around supporting our residents, stepping into Wayne County's territory, and helping our residents. And whether we get paid for a dime or not, I would hope that at a township level, we have got a relationship and a forum with the county where we can exchange dialogue so they understand what we're doing to take and support our residents.
That's a good comment. Thank
Right?
you. Thank you.
We should have that forum.
So, and I'll take the liberty of the chair. Les, I'm going to vote no on this. But what I would like to ask you if you would amend this. And if we want to get the point across to the county of what we are doing, and I guess I want to, what we are doing, what I prefer to do instead of sending a bill is to send them a report of what we've done, for the record.
We never know.
Because I don't think they're going to pay a bill that they haven't already authorized the work to be done, number one. So I think it's a waste of time. It's a good idea, but it's a waste of time. But we could send them a copy of the report, what we did last year and what we did this year. And we are also considering this drain improvement on West River Road at the drain crossing, if you remember, near Horse Mill.
Yes.
And that's going to come back to us once it's permitted, and maybe we'll take it on this fall, maybe next spring. But if we could also send them a report on that these are drain improvements we've made with your permission, but to send them a bill is
Well,
it's not going to go anywhere.
If you send that report to them and say, okay, we have cleaned your ditches for half a mile on Park Lane. This is what the cost we had to pay to get this done, which was your work.
Yeah, so I'm asking if you'd consider amending it, instead of sending them a bill, just send them a report of what we've done last year and this year.
Well, I would say, yes, send them a report, but also have in that report how much the citizens of this township are paying to get that done,
That would be part of
which
the
is supposed to
report.
be the county's responsibility.
That would certainly be part of the report, Les.
So yeah, you can call it a report with a financial statement.
Yes.
Okay, I'll amend that.
All right, so I guess, Derek, you're going to have to come up with the words in the minutes to reflect this, but so we have a motion that's supported. You'll, as the supporter, you'll go along with this revision,
Yes, absolutely. And
sending a report instead of a bill?
I don't disagree with how it was originally intended. I more agree with sending them a report card and an itemized statement on the cost that the residents of this community incurred to help self-maintain items that are technically their responsibility.
And I guess we'll leave it up to staff to determine who to mail this report to. It'll probably be at the end of the fiscal year or into the winter. Any other comments from this end of the table?
I guess,
Go ahead.
you mentioned something that it was hard to track these costs before, and now we developed a program. I think that's worth mentioning in the report, and just kind of saying how, the citizens is, investing in this as a program, not just a one-off type of thing. So it's a yearly thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I agree with sending the county a report that itemizes what we did, when we did it, why we did it, and here's the financial impact on.
In fact, now that I keep thinking about it, at the end of the year, if we do the Church Road project, it'd be nice to send them a report, here's what we did this year.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to send them a bill, though,
not gonna go anywhere.
You can't
No,
spend
they'll just throw that
receivables.
away.
What do you think, Phil?
Well, I think I would like to see, Derek, this would fall on you, of course, go back and include the other projects that we have done, specifically the Swan Island Drainage Project. That was the county's problem. That
So
wasn't.
we could do that for last year's
Yeah.
projects and this year's.
Yeah, I mean, I would encompass this with all the projects that we had undertaken that should have fallen up under Wayne County's purview.
Maybe start tracking, moving forward. Just
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, maybe it would give them some consideration towards us for doing some other things, paving a few
Right.
sections of road. Maybe, it would, without making it, like you say, like a bill where they would just take umbrage to it, a report that may generate some goodwill. I doubt we'll get a
I'd like
check.
staff to comment. I mean,
Oh, we keep good books, so that shouldn't be a problem, and then if you're gonna expand it to things like drainage, you should also expand it to things like road maintenance. I mean, dust control technically is that should be a county responsibility, but we do that, so we can pretty much take a look at our roads and our drainage budgets, from an annual basis and review what costs are should be the county's responsibility. And most of those costs that hit those two accounts are
A can of worms.
county expenditures.
Good one.
Yeah.
Whether it's roadside mowing or whether it's, dust control, snow plowing, any of those things.
I think that's a good idea. I think once you start adding all this up and presenting it to them, and it's a starting point.
As it was stated here, this might help us, if they see what we've done, achieve some more benefit and return from them out of appreciation. Maybe.
Or they can say, you're doing a good job, keep doing it.
Yeah, keep doing it, do more.
Can't do any less.
Well, I would put on the bottom of that report you send to them, right, at the very bottom, say, P.S., we'd like to be reimbursed for this.
I'm okay with that.
They can take it from the jail fund.
I'm okay with the PS part of it. So we have a sort of a generic motion that was made, that's been amended, to send a report on a lot of our expenditures for last year and this year, sometime after the first of the year, to the county, just to advise them of what we've done and that we think is their responsibility. That's the motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. We have a motion that's been approved then. Okay, Les, thank you. Next item is item D, wastewater treatment plant maintenance cap. Derek?
Our contract with Suez maintains language in it that basically Suez covers the first $40,000 in maintenance expense associated with materials and maintenance work at the wastewater treatment plant. Anything over $40,000 on an annual basis or a 12-month period, we then reimburse them for. In this year's fiscal budget, we've budgeted $70,000 for these costs. That overage over that $40,000 amount is $67,102.54. If approved by the commission tonight, we will receive an invoice from Suez, and then we would pay them out of that maintenance allowance for the cost incurred. This is something we do on an annual basis, something that we review about this time of the year, every year. So it's pretty consistent with our past practice. It is consistent with our past practices and our contract with Suez.
You have a motion?
I will make the motion that we slip them a little bit of money.
Well, you make the motion to authorize the payment.
That's right.
We must use the correct terminology here. That we have by contract with them. And in case anybody's watching or wondering what we're talking about, is at the wastewater plant, our contract company that runs the plant, they have repairs that they need to go to the hardware store, to other outlets, Home Depot, hire electric companies, hire all kinds of companies, whether it's for our SCADA system or oil, for our fertilizers and things of that, or not fertilizers, but chemicals we use at the plant. We have list of all the items that are listed. These could be $60 items or $300, $400 items that come up where we need to run and buy equipment, buy tools, buy, like I said, chemicals that are needed at the plant. And some of the list of that we're dealing with here are Newport Electric, Zubik Plumbing, SCADA companies, which is a technological company. So that's what this is all for. We have bills here from the elevator company, Newport or Detroit Elevator, that runs our elevator system. So these are things that are incidental to the plant's operation, which is a very complicated plant to run. And so this is set up purposely to cover those costs that are incurred on a daily basis.
And Ryan is here, our operator, and they keep detailed records of the purposes of all the purchases, receipts associated with all the purchases, for justification purposes of why those dollars are spent on that item. So
Les Schmidtke made a motion to authorize the payment. Is there support for it?
Support.
This is in the amount of $67,102.54. It's been supported. Any questions?
I have a question. What's the state of Michigan? There's a...
Derek, Ryan, would you come up to the...
That was our annual license fee with the elevator.
Okay.
It's a safety inspection. That happens every year. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It has to go through you then?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay there. You might as well stay there.
Okay, I might as well.
Are there other questions?
The only thing I got to say is Ray Biddle must really love you. Grosse Hill Hardware.
Yes, he does. Yeah. I mean, we're in there a lot, so yeah. Buy everything there. You know, everything. we
Well,
need.
luckily for us, it's convenient. You don't have to run off the island.
Supporting
Exactly, yeah.
Island business.
You're not.
Yeah.
You're not sneaking into bootleggers, are you?
No.
Okay, Les, you're being awfully devilish tonight here.
Okay.
Well, it's been a year and a half.
We have a motion, and is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving this payment, indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Wonder who seconded.
So we're going to get to you shortly if you want to stand, or you can go sit down again. So now we have a manager's report from Derek.
Or we have the pipe bursting video, which we already viewed earlier tonight. Water loss report. John has been very diligent in providing me the quantities for hydrant flushing as well as water usage for the project that we have ongoing. Those have not been incorporated into the water loss report, although I will eventually get to that and it will further reduce that number. But right now we're sitting at 10.635%. It was an up month for us at 26 million gallons purchased and 14 million gallons billed. But if you take a look back at the monthly trend, you'll see this similar trend in the summer months because, as you remember, our usage and our billings are not the same. Right. So you have an increase in usage with the summer season, which the billing hasn't quite caught up to yet. So you'll see that start coming down in subsequent months. So any questions about the lost water report?
The only thing I can say is good job, Derek.
And to that point, Les, the I&I was not that bad actually for the month of May. So that's the additional column there for over at the wastewater treatment plant. We balance the amount of water they treat over there versus the water we actually purchase from GLWA.
Well, there's still a lot of footing drain water they're treating.
Yeah. Representative or comparison of 48% to some of the other numbers actually wasn't too bad of a month for them. Right. So.
Okay, thank you for that report. Next is your DPS projects update, Derek.
Yep. So this report was shortened up some from the last month, so how worked to try to put some old stuff on the backside or unfinished or on hold items on the backside of the report, kind of trim down and remove those projects that were completed and focus on those that are still either active or have not been completed or incomplete. Start with the water main project on Meridian Road, north of Bridge. So the construction is in progress. Church Road is all but complete. John, can you speak a little bit to where we stand with service tie-ins?
The new main and new hydrants are all in service. All the services are in service at this time. The only thing left to be done is the tie-in at West River Road and Church Road, which will be completed on Thursday, and that job is complete other than restoration.
And maybe you're probably best to address where we're at with Meridian Road. We had talked about it a little bit earlier today, but when they're going to start pulling some pipe.
Okay, so the pipe bursting is scheduled to begin the beginning of next week, weather permitting. As you've seen us out there, what we have to do first is, and it's in the packet that we're going to review at the end of this presentation, but you have to get everything else that's tied into the current 16 out of your way. So there's a couple service lines, like the one that feeds the public safety building, one that feeds the plaza just to the north of there, that are on that 16. So we made a temporary service from the 8-inch that we're replacing across the street over to those buildings. So they're currently on a temporary service. And then each one of the tie-ins at the intersections, beginning with Macomb Street, Grays Drive, Lowry, and Island Boulevard, will all have to be tied in to the new 16. So we have to isolate those. What we did is we did a couple of temporary shutdowns, which we didn't make some people very happy with, but we had to do it. So when we come through, we can just keep on going. So what we did a temporary shutdown, put a shut-off valve on each one of those intersections going north, so that when we come through to burst, we just keep right on going. So like I was saying earlier, the first bursting section will be from the public safety building going north to Macomb Street. So you might see a little temporary delay of the pipe. Might have to cross over half of Parkway when we first begin that project, but as they're pulling it through, it's going to get shorter and shorter as they go in the ground. So you might have to either bear with us on traffic delay on Parkway and Meridian for an hour or so, but they're going to do their best to avoid that. And let's see, so the next piece will be from Macomb to Grays Drive, which will probably happen Tuesday, Wednesday next week. So if anybody is interested in coming out and seeing the process as we proceed forward, by all means, give me a call and we'll get you out there. The next piece will be from Grays Drive to Lowry. They currently have the connection from Lowry over to, there's a water main that parallels the canal that goes over to Waterman. So that connection's already been made. The pipe is there. They just have to tie it onto the 16 once we get the 16 through. When we get to the canal, we're going to have to stop there, cap it, and come from the other direction, the north side of the canal, going north. We'll go to Ferry Road, and then from Ferry Road, we'll go all the way to Island. And so each one of those pits that we were talking about earlier, one will be a sending pit, one will be a receiving pit. So anywhere there's going to be a gate well, a shutoff valve, or a fire hydrant, you're going to see one of those pits. So that varies on the distance we'll go each day, depending on how, the fire hydrants are every 350 feet, or a valve, it's going to be next 500 feet. So that depends on, which pit we're going to each day is how far we'll go.
I think at the last meeting that we had talked about, they were originally planning on coming from the north, going to the south, because they were already at the north end. Now they've altered that. They're going to go from the south, as John had mentioned,
Correct.
to the north.
Because the pipe is already in place. As you know, we made a little staging area just north of Grays Drive on the west side of the road. So all the pipe was staged there. So when they started their fusing, again, when you go through this packet in a few minutes, you got to fuse all the pipe, put it together, pressure test it, bacteriological test it. All that pipe was right there by Grays Drive. That's why we're going to start at that end. The pieces north of Ferry Road that you see along the West Shore Country Club, those are all pressure tested. They had their second day bacteriological test today. So we'll find out tomorrow they're all good. Then they're scheduled to go in the ground.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of pipe here, and So you're only gonna put a segment in at a time.
Correct.
And then you have to fuse it. So my question is gonna be this. If you start at one end and you're talking about pulling, let's say, a half mile, you go from pit to pit, right? Because the more you have to pull, the more length, the more friction you build up inside the pipe, it's harder to pull. When you go to the pit, is the pit big enough so that the end of the pipe can be fused in place then from where the pipe is drawn? Is that what happens?
No, sir. Actually, what happens is the pipe is all fused together right now at the current lengths. So each one of those lengths, there's 7 on the south side of the canal, and there's 7 lengths of fused pipe on the north side of the canal as well. So each one of those lengths is going to be what they call their shot for the day. So they're going to burst the first one, let's just say from Public Safety Building to Macomb Street is 600 feet. Because what happens is that receiving pit at Macomb Street, that's the connection for Macomb Street. So there's your connection. All the pipes are currently fused together. You don't fuse anything. Everything that gets put together from this point forward is a mechanical joint, whether it's a valve, a hydrant, a T.
All right, so when they butt up against each other, there's a pit, and there'll be a mechanical joint.
Mechanical joint, correct. No more fusing. All the fusing is completed.
Is it like a saddle?
Again, it's going to be the T, or the fire hydrant, or a gate well.
I'm talking about the joint.
The joint is butt
Two pieces
fused.
of pipe butt together.
Those are butt fused together.
Before it goes in the ground.
Right. It's everything's laying on top of the ground. If you want to come out, and I'll show you. And it's in this little packet that Derek handed out. Shows how that is fused together.
So at that end pit where they end up, where they receive it in, then you have your mechanical joint, and then you start from there, moving forward to going on the next few sections.
Another mechanical joint on the other side.
Right.
But all the butt fusion is done. It's been done.
So there is no fusing, and in the sending or receiving pit, that's all mechanical connections.
You're butting those big sections of blue pipe up against big sections of blue pipe, and you're putting a mechanical connection on them.
In between the two joints.
And
Correct.
like the old days with the old ductile iron or whatever, I always called when you make a repair, it was a saddle. I don't know what you call it. What does this look like? I mean,
Well, a mechanical joint's going to have a ring, which they call a gland, and a rubber with bolts that pull it together.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. Everybody follow that?
So I got a question for you, John, which
Yes, sir.
probably wouldn't hurt to let the residents know, but I don't know that they care. But when you're bursting a pipe and you've got a repair sleeve on it, will they, once they encounter a repair sleeve, have to dig up that repair sleeve, or does their head, is it capable of bursting that, or is it dependent upon?
Depending on the length of where they encounter that repair clamp at.
So when we talk about where they excavate, you're going to have sending, receiving pits, you're going to have connections. There also could be a situation where you have a repair sleeve that's on the old main that they can't burst, that they got to dig up and deal with, okay? Because if you have a piece of ductile, it'll fracture like eggs, like an eggshell. But when you got a stainless steel repair sleeve on it, it's far stronger than what you.
Okay.
So it's worth noting, in case we have a resident that wants to know how can they.
And Les would know better than I, but I don't. I know in the 23 years I've been here, there is no stainless bands in the stretch pipe that we're replacing.
And that's excellent on that 16.
So
There's very few repair clamps on the 16-inch main. Very few.
And if you had put some on in your career, they're going to be the old two-piece style, which the bursting head can break.
The three-piece stainless steel Adams clamp or Ford, because we couldn't put a mechanical joint on it. The pipe was oval. We couldn't use a cast iron sleeve.
So in that, what he's referring to is those have malleable bolts. So they're not stainless. So those bolts will break away, that clamp will disintegrate. So we shouldn't encounter that issue. Yes, sir.
Hydrants on Church Road, they're on an 8-inch right now?
Correct.
Okay, and they're all flown.
Correct.
Down Meridian, during this process, will we lose hydrants for short periods of time, or should not see that?
You will not see that.
Perfect.
There are 2 fire hydrants that are being used at temporary service right now.
Correct.
And
We're aware of those.
Mentioned to the association that, God forbid you need them, just cut our pipe and get it out of the way.
We're aware of those. I was just concerned about Church Road and the other ones to make sure.
Well, there's one currently on just north of Ferry Road on the east side of the
Yep.
road, they're using as a temporary as well.
I
And then
didn't see
when we
that
get
one.
up by Island, they're gonna use that one just south of Island,
Okay,
right there, they're gonna use that one as a temporary.
but we can go up 300 feet and grab the next one, push come to shove.
Or cut our pipe out
Or-
of your way.
Yeah.
I hope we
Understood.
never need it.
Understood, thank you.
And just something worth noting, we did have some complaints about service interruptions. I got to commend John. I mean, he was willing to run over to Kroger's and buy gallons of water and take them over to the business to make sure they could stay in operation. Even it was a very short period of time, but our staff has been trying to go above and beyond to make sure that the inconvenience is limited. So they should be commended for that because they've definitely gone above and beyond what you would normally see, I think, and what I've seen.
Thank you, he always does.
And I have to agree, he always takes my phone calls, even if it's like goofy hours or weekends, asking about hydrants or flows and stuff. He always answers, I can't thank him enough.
And one of those interruptions was when we were doing the isolation in Macomb Street. When we put it back together, the old 8-inch that we're trying to get rid of broke. So it was, just nothing we can do. The reason we're doing this is because that pipe is so bad. So when we
That's when you had a bad day.
that was a bad day.
Next on the report, if there are any other questions about the water main project, the sanitary inventory, the cleaning and the televising. My understanding is that they had some problems with equipment, and they were having some problems getting parts for the repair based upon a lot of issues that a lot of contractors are having with COVID availability with parts and equipment. So last I had heard, they had pretty much had those things resolved. Is that accurate, John?
Till yesterday when the same thing came up again. One of their Vector trucks went down and the manufacturer told them they don't no longer make that piece of equipment. It would take them 16 weeks to gear up and have that ready. So they're in the process now. They think they found somebody that can do it in 4, but they have to make sure it's compatible.
So that's where we stand with that work being
But that whole project's moving along just
Yes,
well.
they're televising.
This is a bump in the road, but it's a pretty small one, and
They were over 50% completed last time we checked.
Elba Island pump station repairs. Once again, COVID is causing some problems with material availability, so that's where we stand with that pump station repair work that needs to be done. The pump station is operational, so no concerns with backups or anything like that. But Ryan and I actually talked about that the other day,
Operational, okay.
where it stood. So
Very good.
drainage improvement over at Island Estates. Project specifications are 90% complete, and it was submitted to the county for review and approval. So they're just waiting on finding out from the county whether they have any comments or suggested changes. So as soon as they get that back, hopefully we can get that thing out the bid and get moving on it. So.
Everybody knows what we're talking about there, right? That drain crossing?
Yeah, right.
Drain crossing.
About 2 months ago, we had talked about the 2 projects we wanted to focus on, Church Road and then this one. So this is the second half of the two-legged stool that we're trying to get taken care of this year. Lab unit over at the HVAC system. Looks like they're probably going to need a Part 41 permit. My understanding was Ohio was still working with the state with regards to what was necessary to be able to allow for that. Bar screens. As far as I know, everything's in pretty good shape. Ryan, I don't know if you want to comment on bar screens and what you've been seeing over there.
No, it's all working right. We just need the wet well sluice gate, which we had an actuator part, which it wasn't working. So the contractor is coming tomorrow to install the actuator for the sluice gate, which is in the wet well, and then after that, we'll have an automated sluice gate, which will be nice in the wet well. So, yeah.
So I'm going to ask Ryan, how efficient is the bar screen working? I mean, is it
very, very efficient in that? The sludge haulers were just there, and they told us that we didn't have any rags in our sludge storage. It was almost none. And then we've also noticed that within the plant, there's, I would say it probably moves 90% or more of the rags. So it works great. Real happy to have it, and yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yep.
Yeah, so, anybody have questions about the bar screen? And we have put lights in the staircase going down, so.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's all working.
So that's been done a long time, Laura.
Yeah, we put
Lights. Stay there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, while you're up there, might as well talk about the primary and the final clarifiers.
Okay. As of right now, Weiss Construction is 3 for 4 right now. So both final tanks are up and running, and primary 3 is also up and running. And they started primary 2 Monday this week, and hopefully Weiss will be out of there by the first week of August. Then we'll have everything up and running.
Now, the primary tanks are the ones down in the
Yes.
lower level.
Yep.
And the one that was emptied the last time I was there, is that
Is up and running right now. That's
Water?
primary 3.
underwater? It's in
Yes,
water?
it is.
Water?
Yep.
And have they drained primary tank 2, is it? you're
Yes,
talking
we
about?
have, and they were in there actually this week, and they're ripping everything out of there. Yep, and installing everything. Yep.
If I recall, we bought the motors, replaced the motors for both those.
Correct. Yep.
We have them both.
Yes. Yep.
I know Les couldn't get down there, that's for sure, but has anybody else been down there?
I was down there.
You were down there with
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, not too long ago.
Okay. It's very interesting to see is how big those tanks are once they're emptied with water.
Big.
Have you been down there? Yeah, they're big, so. Okay.
So the last one we have then is primary 1 that we have to do. Is that correct? So we've got
Yes.
2 and 3 that'll be completed this fiscal year. So as we talk about next year's fiscal year budget, we want to take a look at doing 1, and then we would have 1, 2, and 3 all for the most part, other than the actual physical tank itself, all new equipment and motors. There is a 4th tank, the chlorine contact tank that's down there, but the idea was to hold off on doing any work on that to determine whether it was necessary after some of these other improvements that we're doing over there, see what their effect were on the necessity for that, for redoing the chlorine contact chamber or making any modifications to it. So just keep in mind, we've got the final clarifiers and the primary clarifiers, with the exception of 1 done. Would like to next fiscal year knock that 3rd one out of the way, and then we'll have all the new equipment in our primaries and our secondaries. So.
Great. So as far as those primary, that answers the question of the primary. And the sludge hauling contractor, is he done?
Yes.
Cleaned up? He did
Yeah.
a good job?
It went real well this year, and which a lot of that is that last year was their first year there, and then I would say that's always the hardest, once you're first, you kind of learn the ropes in that, but yeah, so it went well. Yeah, no issues. Yeah.
So maybe, just for curious, I mean, I go there somewhat. If we would like, as a commission, maybe before a meeting in September or October, when everything's done, we could also go see the finished product. Like 6 o'clock one evening before our meeting. Those that want to. I mean, not everybody can make those kind of meetings, but it'd be nice to go together and have you walk us through what's been done. Just
Yeah, sure. Yep.
spending a ton of money there, so we'll keep that in mind. So the secondary clarifiers, both tanks are completed, all the equipment's installed?
Yes. Yep.
As I recall, they were having trouble, and I don't know how to explain it, getting the right equipment to fit. Am I wrong?
It was more of an electrical issue, trying to
Well,
get
you had
the
the
electrical
problem
bit.
emptying the tanks, no?
Yeah, but
Has that
that's
been
not a
resolved?
huge issue. Yeah, that's
In the first tank, the first final clarifier took much longer than the second final clarifier because they're mirror images of one another. So once they figured out the best way to address the replacement in the first one, they just applied that to the second one, and I think the second one was done in, what, 2 weeks at the most?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we fully expect,
Yeah.
because the primaries, tank 3 is a mirror image of tank 2.
Exact same thing. So it should go maybe a week or two.
Right.
It'll be all done.
Because not every plant is the same. So, as Weiss comes in to do the installations, they're learning a little bit about how all of it works together. And so we fully expect the second primary they're working on to go much quicker than the first primary was. So.
Good. Anything else you want to comment on at the plant? I mean, is there any other?
Ryan, do you want to talk about this MPDES permit? Is there anything to mention about that? So Ohio's saying waiting on issuance of permit from Eagle for the...
Yes, we are. Obviously, right now we have applied for our new NPDS permit, and in the meantime, we'll just keep following everything that is in the old permit. But we have everything in, and it's with Eagle right now. We just have to wait on when will we issue the new permit, and then I'll make sure that I go over the new permit with our engineers and just look over all the limits and loadings and all that, read it all over. But in the meantime, we just keep following our old permit. So, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to point out to us, or you having other problems that we should be aware of?
No, no SSOs this year, even though we have had nice amounts of rain, but we've just kind of lucked out with the rain amounts that it hasn't been lots and lots of rain over a short period of time.
No overflows?
No SSOs, yep.
Well, and one good thing to mention about that is, we've had tanks down while all of these rainfall events have come through.
Yep.
So we've been operating with one final clarifier. We've been operating with 2 of 3 primary clarifiers. At one point in time, we were operating with 1 primary and 1 final clarifier, both down at the same time. So, for us not to have a discharge when all this is going on is great. And that one night that we had, or one day and a half that we had 2.25 inches of rain, Suez did a very nice job. Jason was over at the plant all night, babysitting everything, running to the pump stations to make sure that all
the stations too.
Yep, all the lift stations were operating the way that they should be. So, while everybody's at sleep while it's raining outside, we got guys running around making sure everything's working so your basement doesn't back up. So that's good. Should have a very strong level of comfort that Suez is watching to make sure everything's working the way it should be when we have those rain events. So.
Great. Anything you want to comment on?
Nothing more. Nope.
Well, thank you, Ryan.
That's it. All right.
It's good to see you. It's good
Thanks,
to not have a
nice.
Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing you guys too.
All right.
Not a whole lot more to discuss on the asset management plan, which I think is the one remaining item that is on the project status report. The GPSs of the manholes and the inspection of the manholes has all been completed. The report was submitted, as was mentioned at the previous meeting, but Fishbeck continues to work on the asset management plan as far as asset inventory, duration of longevity, total cost, and then eventually the financial projection. So that's still in progress, although nothing to report this month other than pretty much work is ongoing. So.
Does that language need to be updated? I mean, there's reference to stay-at-home order and May 1st, 2020.
Yeah, the way that he kind of runs these reports, as you probably notice, is kind of does like a running chronology of things. So he'll keep the old stuff in and then just add to it on the back end. So I think that's probably why that's in there. Yeah.
Okay. Next, I guess we turn to John.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to mention a few things that we got going on for DPS. So, as we discussed earlier, the contractor for the water main replacement project is Brico. They're doing an excellent job. Great working rapport with all their crew. And again, I'm mentioning that Thursday, we will have 5 people out of water on West River Road, so we can do the connection at West River and Church Road. Those people will receive their notification tomorrow. So they'll be off from 8 to 4 on Thursday. Again, the piece on Meridian, you see us out there putting in all the isolation valves and the temporary services so we can begin bursting of that 16-inch next week. The TV and cleaning crew is progressing well. They're southbound on East River Road, currently south of Manchester. Our water main flushing program is still in effect. We're currently around Elba on East River Road heading southbound. And I'd like to congratulate our new employee, Weston Meinhold, who completed his probationary period this last week. He's doing a good job and he's a good fit for our crew. Our lead and copper sampling is going to begin in the next week. So you'll be seeing me coming around with sample bottles, and I need to verify your service line material.
Another picture?
Yes, sir. Yes, you'll be seeing me. And also, we mentioned earlier that dust control is going to begin. We're going to grade the dirt and gravel roads this week. They were supposed to start today, but it was too wet to start, so they're coming tomorrow to grade the roads. And we ask everybody to please not park on the roadways during that week while they're grading. And then the application of the dust control will begin on Monday, the 19th? Yes, the 19th. So please don't park on the roadway during Monday, Tuesday of next week as well. And that's all I have at this
All right,
time.
John. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Ryan, you've already given your report, I guess. So thank you. Discussion items. Road millage. In your packet, I guess it's numbered page 52, is a map of the township. Everybody pull that up? So I think the next phase for our next meeting, what I wanted to ask everybody to do is, Meridian Road is a long segment, but most of the roads like Church, Ferry, Bellevue, they're about, let's just say they're a mile section each. What I would like everybody to do is, if you can get around and drive these roads in the next month, before our next meeting, I'd like you to come in with what would be your top priority. What do you think is the worst section of roads if we had a limited amount of money to start with? What would be your top 3 segments? When I say a segment, you can see between Church and Horse Mill, that's about a mile. Between Church and Ferry on East River, that's about a mile. Between Ferry and Parkway, or we could go to Bellevue, that's about a mile. You could do the same with Meridian, but I'd like to know, we have to prioritize some things someplace. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I had asked if we could have a meeting with the county about Meridian Road. There was some rumor, I think they indicated to Derek, that they might next year do some resurfacing on Meridian. I'll believe it when I see it. But Meridian is eligible for federal money. Only Parkway and Meridian are eligible for federal money. They're what's called the urban system. Mm-hmm. And I think they told Derek they weren't going to use federal money. They were going to use the normal money they get through the gas tax distribution. It's called Act 51 money. I find that hard to believe, but they're not talking about a big reconstruct. They're talking about resurfacing, correct?
Yeah, I didn't. And they're also looking at replacing the Meridian Road bridge over Thoroughfare Canal as well. As a matter of fact, I think they have Wade Trim, I think maybe is doing the design on it as we speak. So.
And I don't know how bad that bridge is. Is it deteriorated underneath? a lot of rerod exposed and so forth?
Not as bad as the ferry road, but yes, sir.
So, if we're gonna talk about a plan, one thing we could do is come up with a plan to recommend to the township board for putting on the ballot that would say we need 2 mills. I'm really skeptical of that until we can see a reduction in millage. But I was thinking that if we went to the voters, if we knew Meridian had a chance, we could come up with a 20% cost and go to the voters with a proposal to urge the county to do something, go for the federal dollars, the 80% funding on Meridian, we come up with the 20%. And that would mean we'd have to ask for $1 million, let's say. And maybe we do, maybe if we knock off church, maybe we do the other section of church. Or whatever you guys come back and say, is Ferry worse than church, or is Bellevue worse than that? I mean, Ferry's starting to break up pretty bad, or another segment of East River. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, I'd like to have come back with, see if we can agree on priorities. I think we could all agree Meridian's a priority. But that's eligible for 80% federal money. I think if we could say we're going to go to the voters and ask them to approve, let's say, $500,000, and I'm going to put some dollar figures together, but we need to have a priority. We need to start talking about priorities. So my request is that everybody drive around and let's come back with your top 3 segments. And let's, each one of these grid things that you can use your imagination I'm going to consider as about a mile. And see if we can reach agreement on, now, West River is really bad, that last section, but the amount of traffic volume they have is minuscule compared to Meridian. Mm-hmm. And even compared to East River. They have less than 1,000 vehicles a day there, much less in that last mile there. Now, right now, with people avoiding Meridian because it's so bad, it's higher. I mean, I drive West River a lot to avoid Meridian. But anyway, I think we got to start. So we're going to have a big discussion at our next meeting about road priorities.
Would you want to take church out since you're doing that resurfacing, or?
Sure, you could. Yeah, but the section between Meridian and the canal,
right on the north side,
is a very bad section.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind that the repair that we're going to do on Church Road is a repair. I mean, it is going to have a fairly short, in the grand scheme of things, longevity to it. So keep in mind that 10 years from now, if the millage still exists,
right.
you might want to take a look at using some of those millage funds to do a complete rehab there or something. So, or revisit that, but still keep it in mind that it could still be needed within the longevity of the millage that we're looking at, right, to be replaced.
Well, you know what, we're going to end up, we can either do one of two things. We can recommend that at the end of the year that we go next year, maybe we don't finish our work till next spring, but that we go to the voters in November of 2022 and ask for 2 mills. That'd be easy. Or maybe we ask them for a mill. Well, we all know that a mill doesn't get you someplace. But if we could knock off some top priorities with a $500,000 request, and then come back in 2024 at that election with a mill and ask for 10 years for that, now we got $1 million a year we can do something with. And by 10 years from now, I mean, other things will deteriorate, but we'll be a heck of a lot better off than we are today. I'm just throwing that out there. We got to start thinking of these alternatives. So, anyway, that's my request. We try to prioritize. If you only had a limited amount of money, what would you ask for first? What stands a good chance of getting approved? Certainly Meridian does. If we could push the county, encourage them by coming up with something, maybe they'll fix it in 2022. And maybe it won't be a long-term fix, but if it's a good fix and we get some, then when we pay off the sewer debt, we could go and ask for more money without raising taxes. I'm just trying to throw that out there. Comments?
Bring in our top 3 miles,
Okay.
right?
Yep. So
Top 3 miles.
So for now, that's that. We've talked a lot about that. The other thing is in the packet at the very end here. Okay, so I'm going to do chairman's report right now. I asked Derek and then Sohail to get us some written information, and then he said, I can get you a video of the pipe bursting. And I said, that sounds great. And so now they found this article about pipe bursting, and it talks about how the pipe is fused, and it's a lengthy article with some good pictures in it, and it helps understand the technology. But there were a couple of questions that didn't satisfy me with. So one of them was, how are the pipe sections fused? Well, it's a heat process, and I think that's been answered now, right? It's a heat process, they've been fused. Then the other one is how the individual connections made between the pieces. And so now tonight that's been answered too. Now, the other one that I had that isn't answered, when we go from Ferry Road, and John's already answered as far as the public safety building is concerned, but when we go from Ferry Road to Thoroughfare, there's about 6 or 8 houses through there. I asked John, I already know the answer, but they're going to be given temporary service.
Actually, those houses are all on the 8-inch that we're gonna replace. So they'll stay in service the entire time until the 16's in place. Then they'll tap the 16, then they're live on the 16.
So when you tap the 16 is gonna be on which side of the road?
West.
It's gonna be on the west side of the road.
So they're gonna drill those up to the property line and connect to the existing.
So you're gonna bore under Meridian.
Correct.
For each house.
Correct.
And give them a brand new, you're gonna dig a pit on the west side of the road for
Correct.
each connection.
That is correct.
Go down after you drill under, then they're gonna make a physical connection, and those homes will be out of service for 4 or 5 hours.
Yes, at the most.
I was wondering about how that was gonna work.
And we decided on plastic, or we run on copper? Or
Plastic.
Mixture of the two?
Plastic.
Okay.
Yeah, anything over 1 inch is copper.
Yeah.
Everything else is plastic.
All right, so as far as this article, there's a lot of technical stuff here, but does anybody have any comments or questions that they thought of when they read this?
No, it's a good process. Really good process. Came a long way.
And this is the same process we used up on Park Lane, isn't it?
The drilling is.
Okay.
The bursting is new for us.
Okay. So we didn't burst up at Park Lane? Okay. I came in on the tail end of that project, and you guys were about wrapping it up. So, but that was a
West
bore.
River. Did they burst on West River?
No, that was directional drill as well. This is the first bursting project we've had.
Okay.
We did a fair amount of bursting in Gibraltar when I was there, and we didn't have any problems. It worked out really well.
Actually, I should rephrase that. For water system, this is the first bursting job we've had.
East River was directional drill too.
Correct. It's actually the same contractor that drilled that one.
It was? Bricko?
No, well, his sub, Full Bore, Bore Brothers. Full Bore was the company that did the East River job, and the guys that did that drilling spun off on their own. Now they're Full Bore, Bore Brothers.
All right, well, the reason we wanted to focus on the pipe tonight is I've been getting questions from people, including my wife and neighbors and other people that I know, and I couldn't answer some of them. And Phil said his wife asked him about it, now Gene's an expert. At any rate, thanks for putting up with all this discussion. Still in the chairman's report, one thing I want to bring up, I already talked to Derek about it, but this year the 4th of July was celebrated on Monday. But our refuse contractor didn't celebrate it. He picked up on Monday. So that morning, on Monday following the 4th weekend, I had 3 phone calls. People I know. Should I put my garbage out? And of course, as innocent as I am at times, I said sure, because everybody's celebrating the holiday on Monday. Post office wasn't working, the banks were closed. Well, I was wrong. And so I looked ahead to next year. The July 4th day is a Tuesday. July 4th, 2022 is a Tuesday. And our contract doesn't provide that that's one of the holidays we recognize. We do Labor Day, we do Independence Day, and we do Thanksgiving, and we do Christmas. But I don't think it recognizes the 4th of July.
It recognizes the 4th of July, but it doesn't recognize the observed day. It recognizes the actual day. So the way our contract is written, it's always the actual day. So that's where the confusion was. People thought, well, if it's observed on the 5th, they must not pick up on the 5th, but it was actually the 4th is when they review it against the contract. So normally what we do is we put out a push notification just to remind the residents, because all this information's on our website, basically what days trash is delayed under what circumstances. But it does leave some things open to interpretation, so we try to remind the residents. And the push notification actually came out, I think, on the 5th. Normally we try to send it out a little bit earlier, so that was probably why there was a little bit of confusion. But for those residents that did get missed or didn't know that Monday was their trash day, they thought it was delayed, we had them contact DPS, and then we set it up so that they got picked up on Tuesday, so they didn't have, trash sitting around for a week. And that's one of the benefits that we have with the 2-day pickup now. Priorities on the island for a second day where they can go back and address issues that might have existed on the first day. So that helps out. But to Bill's point, we'll try better in the future to make it a point to always, irregardless of when the holiday is, let them know that, to reassure them that their trash day either has been changed or it's staying the same, because there's always that question out there, I think. So
this is interesting because I was in Omaha and I missed my trash because I thought that they would not pick up. So it must be, they just on the day and not the observed day.
Yeah. And I think that's why our contract is written. The specific language is these days are observed. If it lands on the normal trash day, your trash day is pushed back a day, but only if it lands on the normal trash day.
Yeah.
So we can always amend the contract. But for next year then, which is a Tuesday, the 4th of July, they will not pick up that day.
Trash should be on Monday and Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah.
So
that covers next year, but
it's not an observed day; it's an actual day that happened to be. Yeah.
Because most people will celebrate that on that day.
Right.
I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of people that are going to take a long weekend because they'll take Monday off as well because of Tuesday. So we'll pick up on Monday, but
and they'll miss it because they'll be away.
They'll be away.
Have their neighbor do it.
Well, you have neighbors. I always put my trash out on the day it's to be picked up. The worst that can happen is it's picked up the next day.
All right. So next year we should be covered. That's my point. I mean, I wanted to bring it up.
Yep. Yeah.
If we're covered next year, then who knows what'll happen at my age. Anyway, okay. Well, thank you for that. That's all I have. So, commissioners' comments. Lenny is gone for comment, but we'll start with Les.
Okay. The only comment I have is you're talking about the Meridian Road Bridge and the Park Lane Bridge, and the township is looking to hire this engineer to look at the Parkway Bridge. Maybe we should talk to this engineer when they do hire get the man on board, that have him look at these other bridges. Because if the county's coming out here and saying, well, it's like what you said, Darrell, when they shut down that one on Allen Road for 2 years or 2.5 years, they just shut it down and walk away. And they did finally dig that up and replace it. But how bad are these bridges that they have to shut everything down and the county sits on their fingers, just like they did with the Rouge River Bridge in River Rouge? Maybe this engineer will give us some answers.
Well, of course, this is a matter before the township board, and they're only paying them $25,000, which is not going to get them very far. That's what I read in the paper. Is that true? Did I read that correctly?
I think the authorization was not to exceed.
Not to exceed 25,000.
But I think you raise a good point, because John and I know well that the Ferry Road Bridge is in bad shape.
Yes, I agree.
The Elba Road Bridge over to Elba Island is in bad shape. And the abutments to each of those on either side, if you go drive them, the county's got to come out, and we've done it too, fill the holes that developed before the concrete abutment when you leave the asphalt pavement. I mean, you can go right out now onto Ferry Road and drive that over that bridge, over the canal, and feel the difference in change in elevation. It's a matter of 2 or 3 inches where it's settling all the time and we have to backfill it. Those bridges are in bad shape, Les.
I know that.
Go underneath the Ferry Road Bridge, and I've been under it. The re-rod hanging down that's exposed is terrible. I mean, you could cut your head open with the re-rod, correct?
It was just like the Mesa Island Bridge.
But that's fixed now.
Yeah, that's got a new bridge.
But the Elba Island's bad, that's bad. I didn't know Meridian was bad. And of course, here we have the Park Lane Bridge shut down. Although I think the residents like it shut down. But
Yeah, but
So
fire
it's a- so
protection
it's-
and
you know,
stuff like that
so,
really screws things up.
So I think that telling Derek, bringing this up to Derek, it's good to plan it in your mind. Because we need to, so what, okay, we'll take that item. Lenny, you're back. Are you done? You're done.
I'm done.
You're done.
Done with the Ferry Bridge?
You're done. You have any other thing to comment on?
It's gonna be back in person. So,
Oh, that's great.
it's
I
gonna be
think,
back in person.
I think you're right.
I
Yes,
think
same here.
We improvised, but it's absolutely wonderful to be back in person.
It is. Thank you for that, bringing that up. Anything else?
No, sir.
Bill?
Derek, John, and Bill, a couple weeks ago, we looked at the corner of West River and the entrance up to Parkway for
Yes.
the flooding that was there. We talked about the trash removal of the stuff and trimming up on the, where do we stand on that?
So as far as the trimming is concerned, that's been completed. TNT came out and did the work on the opposite side of that fence and then also up the road by the golf course.
Okay.
We had put in a request with the county to remove that signage that's laying on the ground. They confirmed the email and said that they would be out to come pick it up. I think it's still sitting there. And then as far as the TVing of the storm system, which I think was the last piece of information we needed to know as far as where that storm system goes, so we could hopefully design, some sort of fix to what you had mentioned. I'm assuming Safeway hasn't been able to get to that yet.
They came on today, did a 2-hour job for us. Other than that, with their Vector being down, we can't do anything. So we're waiting for them to get their Vector up. The Vector they did have available today was used for the wet well at the wastewater treatment plant. So
Okay.
it's on the
It's on the
to-do
schedule.
list.
It's on the schedule.
Great, thanks. Nothing else?
Okay, Laura.
Nothing?
Okay.
Thank you.
Nothing from me.
Thank you. Okay, there was something I wanted to mention. I think we all should be aware, if you're not, that our Derek is going to be promoted at the end of, or by September 1st to the Township Manager position. Congratulations, Derek. He's also going to serve in a dual role as continuing as DPW Director, correct?
Correct, yep.
We're going to backfill his position with somebody that will be in charge of community development and shoulder that burden. My view of it has been, and so number one, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
I
much.
think you
Appreciate
deserve that very much. And my view of it is that if somebody's in the community development position, they can also act as an assistant to Derek. Because anything that's big, generally we bring the township manager into it anyway, like the $4 million water main program or a road millage, anything big like that. But Derek says he's going to still attend our meetings. So
Yes, he
one
will.
thing I think we need to make sure we budget for is, and probably need to do it amendment to this year, but I don't want him writing minutes up, wasting his time writing minutes of our meetings. We probably need to hire a recording secretary.
That would be less.
No?
He's got great notes down here.
Well, anyway, I throw that out there because I think it is important. And Dave, you're the treasurer. I would hope that you in your dual role could I think that's very important. The manager can't be sitting down doing minutes of our meetings. So we need to, I'm looking forward to seeing that that position is backfilled. And we got to give him as much support as we can. So, okay, I'll plant that idea in your head.
Okay.
I saw that happen many a time when I was in Farmington Hills, where people didn't have the time that we would bring the recording secretary, like our planning commission, and when we were booming, met four Thursdays a month. Every Thursday they met. And the recording secretary came in and recorded the minutes, because a lot of public hearings, particularly zoning hearings, you know, that testimony is almost verbatim. So nobody on staff did it. We had somebody come in and do it because you needed to. You just didn't have the staff time. We didn't have a lot of staff, excess staff to sit down and record minutes at that point. So that was before computers too, when I was there. But so I think this is very important. But congratulations, Derek, and
Thank you.
we look forward to continuing to work with you on this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I think we've run out of things to talk about. Is there anything else to bring up? If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:14 p.m.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.